All right, so for this week, you should see a week 2 out there. If you remember from the syllabus, we're going to be working with our interactive development environments. There's Pycharm, Visual Studio, and a bunch of others. So I have a couple links out here. The first one I want you guys to go check out is the GitHub Student Developer Pack. You guys can come out here and sign up for this, because what's going to happen is you're going to get access to a bunch of different materials all the way through. So the first one is going to be a JetBrains account, which is actually how you'll get Pycharm. And they give you a free subscription for students that can be renewed each year inside of there. But there is a ton of other stuff that you're going to get as part of this GitHub Student Developer Pack. So go out and we'll sign up for the GitHub Student Developer Pack. Part of this stuff we are going to use in the class. So for example, you know, Namecheap, you're going to get a free year domain or a domain registration with the .me. If you guys end up standing up websites for this class and want to actually put them in production, you can do that there. There's a DigitalOcean one where you get $100 in platform credit for new users. Again, that's going to be part of what we're going to do on here. And then there's a bunch of other ones, including you have Visual Studio Code. So you'll be able to go out and get the Visual Studio Code as an IDE as well and pull it down. But there's a ton of different resources you're going to get access to. A lot of free credit, you know, 30 days here, $100 credit here, that kind of stuff to really kind of test stuff out. So try to get signed up for this Student Developer Pack. There shouldn't be any cost associated with this, but please let me know as we go through this here this morning. I've done this myself as an instructor and have set up what's called a Google or a GitHub Classroom. And then there should be a link out here on Blackboard where you can actually join that classroom once it comes up, kind of thing. Again, this is the first semester of using this and using the GitHub Classroom. The idea is once it's in there, I can use that for homework assignments and starting you with starter assignments, etc., that you can then check out from GitHub and then start the assignment and resubmit yours up, use a repository, etc. So I'm going to keep working with that. In the meantime, if you guys get signed up with the student account here or the student pack, and let me know if you guys have any issues with that part. Those of you online, if you want to follow along there, you may already have the student developer pack, especially if you're a comp sci student. It's possible you may have already done that, but if not, go ahead and sign up for this. You'll get some free access in there. You'll need to use your I think I said in Blackboard is to use your own account. I actually want you not to do that because you'll need to use your Fort Hays email account. Okay, so yeah, you should be able to associate multiple in there. But I believe for them to verify that you're a student, they'll want your Fort Hays email address. So I would do that, and then I would associate your personal email address. That way, when you lose student access, you still have your GitHub account. That part doesn't change. And again, if you sign up that first, that's going to get you access to JetBrains, which was the next thing that we were going to go ahead and get. So we'll work through the details here. But JetBrains itself, the learning tool specifically that we're looking for is going to be Pycharm. You can get free licenses for here, for educational licenses, in this case for students and teachers, and you can apply to get this license. And you just simply fill out your account here. So I'm going to put this in for the JetBrains. Again, you should get that as part of the GitHub Student Developer Pack, but I'll put it here if you want to just fill it out directly.
I'm getting page not found when trying to sign up for the GitHub Classroom.
Hold on a second here. Let me turn up my audio. What'd you say?
For the GitHub Classroom, when I go through that link, I get page not found.
Okay, yeah, if you try refreshing, see if it comes back up. Mine was acting really goofy this morning too.
Okay.
If it doesn't, again, I'm not sure if we'll use the classroom portion of it. If it gives us perks or something like that, we'll use it, but I don't plan on right away kind of thing. So the main three things I wanted to work on today was getting you the GitHub student developer pack. Sometimes it takes a little bit for them to verify and get you access. So just watch your email and such. And then making sure that we get JetBrains for Pycharm. Let's throw that in here. So you can, if you sign up here, there's Pycharm EDU, which is just a really basic version of Pycharm, specifically meant for just teaching the basics in Python. We want you to have Pycharm Pro if you can get it. And all you have to do is go up here to students and teachers. And if you click apply now, you can fill out this information and get that access. So it's pretty simple. This should be bundled in with your GitHub, but I won't know because I haven't done the student side of GitHub yet. So. And then the last piece will be Visual Studio. Again, there's that component that you should get here, where you get access to that, and they'll give you information for it. If not, you can go out and get Visual Studio Code. Where you can go out and download that latest version and use that one. Now, again, there's many, many other IDEs that are out there. Some other popular ones for Python that you may come across is Wing. Wing IDE was specifically written for Python, and it was pretty popular for doing that kind of stuff in there. If you're a Mac user, you may have some other software that you want to use. Trying to think of what you use on a Mac. It's the main one most people come up with.
Xcode.
What was that?
Xcode.
Xcode. Well, Xcode's more of the Apple side of things. Okay, yeah, there was one popular one that was mostly for the Mac side. I can't think of what it was. I don't know. I don't use it. I prefer Pycharm myself. That's mostly what I'm going to demonstrate here in the class. But again, if you want to use Visual Studio Code in those, I have no problem with that. It's all about finding one that is nice for you. One thing I liked about the JetBrains, when you get into there, JetBrains has one for pretty much every language out there. So if you come out and look at their developer tools, you're going to see a bunch of different IDEs for a bunch of different things. What's nice is they all have plugins. And so you can use Pycharm, but then you can have plugins for Ruby, and you can have plugins for, you name it, everything down the line, you're going to have access to it in there. So Pycharm's always worked well. I've used RubyMine for when I was coding in Ruby for a while. The IntelliJ idea up here, that's like the whole kit and caboodle. It's got a little bit of everything. PHP Storm was pretty common for people that did PHP stuff. Data Grip is kind of handy if you're dealing with a bunch of database stuff. It allows you to connect and interact with databases. But with the student account, you get access to all these. So. And so again, there's two main editions. You've got the professional edition, which gets you access to everything over here on the left. Community edition basically goes all the way up to Git integration, but then there's scientific tools, web development stuff, all the Python web frameworks we're going to cover in this class, all that's integrated into the professional edition. And then of course there's the educational one, which is pretty basic. All right. Anybody have any issues getting signed up with student developer pack?
Yeah, it's making me submit like.
Oh, a pick of your student ID. Okay. So yeah, if you, and I had to do this on the instructor side. So if you just hold your student ID up to the screen, that should be sufficient. If anybody has any problems getting signed up for GitHub Student Developer Pack, let me know. Which will make today a little bit more difficult. So the first one we could go out and do though is Visual Studio Code, so we can at least get that installed. I'm going to do that here in a virtual machine. You guys don't have to do stuff in a virtual machine. The only reason I am is to try to keep it separate than my other 900 Pycharm projects and not get all the class stuff confused with it. So we'll start with Visual Studio Code. There's a link out there in Blackboard. Again, I encourage you just to at least install it so you're familiar with it. Go away. So if we download the version that we're looking for here, I have everything resolution-wise cranked up so you guys can see it. There we go. Download. And what's nice is Visual Studio Code is across all platforms again, so that's another reason I recommend that one. There it goes. Now it's pulling down another. All right. Okay, so I'll encourage you to go ahead and read these. Don't just scroll through and click accept. That was a joke, right? I just did that. All right, so install this. You can go ahead and add to the start menu if you choose. And go ahead and add your path in. That'll help later on down the road when you guys are installing multiple things in there. All right. How many of you guys use Visual Studio? Is that what you use?
I do.
Okay. All right, so you guys should be able to start new projects. You can go in just like you'll see in Pycharm. It's going to be very dissimilar. So you can start with new files, new texts. I believe you can start new workspaces, which is like your projects equivalent out here. So save a new workspace, etc. So we'll go and dive a little bit more into this. I encourage you to go ahead and pull it up, play with it a little bit. Source control, this is going to give you your access to Git. So we will need to install Git both ways. So if you come out here and click on Git for Windows, we'll need that for Pycharm as well. So we can go ahead and hit open. And this is going to install the Git for Windows. Now, for those of you that don't know what Git and GitHub is, there's a couple different code repository options out there. Git is a popular one. SVN or Subversion was a pretty popular one. Git's pretty much one out. There's a bunch of them out there, but Git is pretty much one out in terms of what most people use today. It's a little bit better version control that I've seen versus Subversion. I used to really like Subversion, but Git is, when you have GitHub and Git repositories, that's pretty much what everybody does today. So. All right, so downloading this, we'll just grab the 64-bit. I'm assuming you guys all have 64-bit machines. Was anybody able to sign up for the student pack? You were? Okay. So you can just use all the defaults here. We're going to use Vim, which is GitHub's default. Let Git decide. Basically all the defaults in here. There is some times where you would want to check things out, and it would be nice, but it'll cause some problems. One of the main ones here that you will sometimes run into with Git, and I suggest that you would use it, is you can check it out as Windows style. If you're on a Windows platform, it will end up committing everything as Unix. That should be fine. If you run into issues, you may want to check it out as another style. But typically, Git is all sent as Unix style code, which is the line endings. I ran into a lot of issues with this, so you can adjust this generally in the platform. But just know sometimes writing code on Windows and then committing that to a Unix style and then deploying it on Ubuntu or any other Linux style, it causes line endings issues from time to time. So. All right. Again, basics work really well. I've yet to find a reason to add a bunch of extra options in there yet. Again, very similar to what you're going to see in Pycharm when we go through that one. There's an extensions out here in the marketplace. So if there's things you want to add on, you can certainly do that here. Some things that are super nice. Obviously, you'll want the Pycharm or the Python version in here. I've used Pylance. What's some other good ones since you guys use Visual Studio? Tab 9. So tab 9, see what that looks like. Am I spelling that correctly?
Number 9, N-I-N-E.
Like that?
No spaces.
Tab 9. Gotcha. Oh, for automating in Java and Python. Okay. So that brings up another good point. So that one, I haven't used this one specifically. I've used Kite. Kite's pretty common in the Pycharm realm, but this would be one that will help you with auto completion, which I strongly recommend you guys use. So we're beyond the whole knowing every single syntax for writing Python. Let's just get code done. That's where these AI auto completes are significantly useful. So strongly encourage you to use this one. Tab 9 looks, I mean, you guys use it, looks good to me. Again, Kite is another one I've used. So Kite AI. The only thing I've seen on Kite is it will start as a free plugin. I believe if you want the really high powered portion of it, you got to pay for it. But this one also has integrations with VS Code and Pycharm. So they're completely worth it. I will agree. Having tab auto completion and have it read deep into your code to make sure that you have your imports set up correctly and all that kind of stuff. Not to mention like this part where it actually gives you the options of what you want to put in. You just throw in an integer, that kind of stuff. It does make your code significantly faster. So yeah, to get this one, you just come out and download for free. You tell it which integration you want. I believe you can do the same package here like we were talking about with tab 9. And you can install that version here. Awesome. Anything else you guys recommend in Visual Studio Code? Themes? Yeah. Okay. Is there a particular theme that you like?
I made my own theme, so I can't.
Yeah, I hear you. Let's see. Somebody was mentioning one on the chat. What were you mentioning there? Was that you, Crush, that was talking?
Oh, I just said I made my own theme, so.
Oh, you made your own. Yeah. So again, this is, if you're going to be a coder and use that kind of stuff, I strongly encourage you take the time to set up the environment so you like it. Like here, I turned on a high contrast theme. That's mostly so that you guys can see. Obviously I wouldn't want that high contrast if I'm sitting here staring at my code all day long. That would definitely hurt my eyes. All right, so we have Git. Let's see where we're at here. There we go. And we're not going to view the release notes, and we can finish that up. All right. So again, once you get signed up with Student Developer Pack, you're going to have a GitHub account, that kind of stuff. That we will all get integrated. So we'll do that Thursday. That'll be the quote homework before Thursday, is just getting signed up for the GitHub starter pack. Get up this other part here. So the other one I'll have you work on today. And again, you're going to get the same benefits when you do the GitHub starter pack. But if you guys come out here and grab Pycharm, you can do that. So for now, if you want, you can just download the trial. And again, you'll be able to log in with your GitHub account and be able to pull that in here. So let me grab this one. We're going to stick this inside of here. Now, when you do the JetBrains one, this will get you to download Pycharm. I do encourage you to go get under developer tools. You're going to have this toolbox app. Cancel this real quick. This toolbox app is going to allow you to download the different IDEs. It's also a manager to make sure you get the latest updates and all that kind of stuff. So I do personally like having the toolbox app running in the background. It's very simple to pull that out. So if you go to downloads, or in this case, I already started the download. We'll grab the toolbox here. Okay. And then with the toolbox installed, it's usually going to put a little icon down here at the bottom. Load it up here. There we are. It's this little square box down here. Obviously need to give my virtual machine just a little more power. Okay. All right. So again, this is just a good way for you to get access to all those different systems. Specifically, the one that we're going to look for is Pycharm Pro, which is this one here. And so we can install that. This is nice. Another reason that's nice is if you want to have multiple versions of it installed. So say you want the 2022 version, and then later on they release another one. You can not only just upgrade it, but you can also install back rev versions if you need it. So it makes it kind of handy. Again, to get signed up for Pycharm, you'll just need to come out to this link and you'll have JetBrains student account. You can go through their verification process. What's nice is once you create it, then when you do it, like say next year, if you guys aren't graduating, you can easily click in there one more time and it'll automatically renew your keys and you won't have to deal with that each time. Pycharm loaded up here. You guys will have to tell me if this gets too hard to read. I'm going to adjust down the DPI setting so it's not horrible there. Now, it is nice to have some decent, oops, wrong one. Some decent amount of RAM when running some of these visual, the IDE side of things, they can tend to chew up a little bit of RAM. So if you come out here and see, like right now, it's chewing up a little bit of the CPU cores, but it will start to chew up the RAM. In this case, I think I gave it 8 gig of RAM and it's chewing up about 4, trying to get everything loaded up there. So. All right. So once you've got this installed, you can go ahead and click on it. It'll launch it for you. All right. We're not going to import any new settings. Got a new install. All right, so this license screen is going to pop up again once you get your JetBrains account, which you guys will get when you get signed up. You can just log into your JetBrains account. That way you don't have to pull license keys and all the other stuff. It just automatically activates it. For here, if you guys haven't got that yet, just go ahead and hit start trial. Then you can go ahead and log into a JetBrains account, which you'll create as part of your setup. Let's see here. I got to remember all my stuff. There we go. So once you get your authorization in there, you can come back here and we can see that it's licensed out for educational use for another year. So I just renewed mine here last week. You always get your subscription for another year all the time. All right. So once that's good, we can hit activate. And then once we're activated, we don't have to worry about it for a year. And you guys will have a very similar process once you have your student side. So within Pycharm, it's going to look and feel very similar to what you guys have done in the past. What you can do is start in a new project, or you can get something from a VCS. Again, VCS in this case is going to be Git for us. So if I have you check out a GitHub project from me, from that class, you can simply click on Git VCS. It's going to ask for the URL, which is what you would copy out of Blackboard, paste it in here, and it would create that checkout. In this case, we're just going to create a new project to demonstrate here today. Inside Pycharm, there's a couple of things that it's going to set up for you. And again, I know Visual Studio is very similar. So at the top, we can give this a name up here. We could call this a getting started spell. There we go, getting started. It's going to create what's called a virtual environment. Now, so far, what you guys have done within Python is when you go install any pip packages, it's installing it to the system, meaning that you could have conflictions of different pip packages you need for different projects. So Python has this concept called virtual environments, which means you create a virtual environment for the Python project you're working on, and you only install the packages you need for that particular project. So you bounce in and out of virtual environments depending on the project that you're running on. Pycharm takes care of all this for you, so you don't have to know all the command line version of creating virtual environments. It's not hard. You basically go into your command prompt, you type virtual env, make project, and then you have to activate it every time you want to go in it. Again, Pycharm kind of takes care of that. So in here, if you go to new environment using virtual env, down here in the base interpreter, this is where you can select what version of Python that you want to use based on what's installed in your system. So we should all have Python 10 installed based on what we talked about last week. If your project needs an older version, you just need to go and grab that older version, say Python 3.9, 3.8 in some cases is important for Django and a couple other packages that we may need. So you install those, you come in here and select the based interpreter. You can either choose to inherit all the global site packages, which means it's going to take everything that you have and on the system side, pip install, and make it available to your project. We don't necessarily want that. We want a clean slate so that we're only installing the packages that are necessary. This option here, make it available to all projects. You could use this interpreter in multiple projects if you wanted to. In this case, we try to keep one project to one virtual environment. Just makes sense. And then at the bottom here, you can decide whether or not you want a main welcome script. We're just going to leave it there for now so you can see. We'll hit create. This can take a little bit as it's setting up its own virtual environment. Once you get this set up, it's pretty darn fast when you start working within the tool. Again, the more RAM you have, the better you're going to have a better experience. That's just the basics in coding. Okay, so there's a couple of nice things that are in Pycharm. Again, I know Visual Studio have those. But down here at the bottom, you can reduce the indexing time and things like that. Go ahead and do the always download there. What that does is it downloads indexes for Python 3.10. So what Pycharm does is it goes out into every available file and finds out what files are available, what packages, what classes are available, what objects are available, and it will allow you to auto-complete and finish that. That's basically what tab 9 is doing, is it's going through, figuring out all the packages, and then figuring out what you're typing as to whether or not it will auto-complete it for you. So it's a good way of making things a lot faster when you start typing stuff out. Now, this very simple project that came up here, if we look on the left-hand side, you're going to have your VENV. This is your virtual environment with all your Python scripts and files and packages that you installed. You have your main.py, which is just a sample script that we have here. You have a bunch of external libraries. This is your Python 3.10 install for the system itself. And then under scratches and consoles, this could be like little scratch files if you want to set that up. If we look over here on the right-hand side, you're going to see your main.py. This is where you'll do all your coding inside Pycharm. You'll notice in this case, we created a function called print high name, and then we're going to go and just print that in. Comes in here, we call that function. Now, a lot of you did this in the initial Python course where you had if underscore name underscore equals main, then it executed something. A lot of you didn't, right? We just executed scripts. We didn't necessarily get into this style of Python. What this does is it allows you to run the file itself as a standalone script. Python will interpret and say, okay, if I'm running this file in the Python shell or interpreter, then go ahead and execute this as the first thing in this script, right? So a lot of times it'll do it by default, but if you want to execute this as a package of its own, then you can go ahead and have this set up down here. All right. You'll notice over here on the left, we have this red dot. This is going to demonstrate that we are freezing, and this creates a breakpoint. So when we're executing our script, it will stop at that point, and then we can turn that off and on whether or not we want to continue on. This is significantly helpful when you're executing code, right? In the old days when we were using idle, you just had to run the code, figure out where it broke, go back to that point. We couldn't just say stop. We did learn a little bit of the debugger in that class, but it wasn't as easy, right? It was like step over, but it was running through way too much code. This allows you to set actual breakpoints in your code. This little play over here will allow you to go ahead and play that file. In other words, run that file. And you can do the same thing up here at the top. So if you make sure that this is the file you have highlighted, in this case, main, Then we can go ahead and hit run up here at the top, and you're going to get the Python console popping up down here at the bottom. So as opposed to idle, where you have two screens pop up, this is how you would typically operate in Pycharm. You execute your code up here, write it. When you hit play, you're going to see it hit down here at the bottom. All right. There's a couple of tabs across the bottom. You're going to have version control. Once we get all that set up with Git, when you guys get all your accounts, then we'll work with that. You have run, which is the execution of the code that we just showed you. You can set up to-dos. So if you actually set up to-dos in your code, this is going to strip out all the to-dos and let you know what you need to do. So if you're writing a bunch of code and you're like, to do, I need to integrate whatever in here, it's going to pop up here with your list of to-dos to get in there. This comes back to that whole commenting thing that we were talking about. It's important that you comment everything you can inside your code, including things that you're thinking about doing in to-dos, because Pycharm will actually pull out all your to-dos and give you that list. So if you're explicit in all your to-dos, it will help you out in that realm. Problems is just going to tell you what problems are in that file. So it's going to execute and do a code check. If it notices anything, you can figure that out before you even run the code. Terminal, this is going to give you a command prompt within Windows. In this case, it tends to give you PowerShell anymore in the newer versions. When you're in this side, you're going to notice that it's just trying to activate the shell. You are going to be inside your virtual environment when you execute code in here. So in other words, if you do a pip install, blah, 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 it's going to do it to your virtual environment that you're installed in. All right. Python packages. If you want to use a GUI version of installing packages, you can do that here. So if you come in, do a search for a package, say, for example, NumPy that we're going to talk about, you can come out here to NumPy and you can install the latest package that you want inside of there. All right. This will give you some information about the package, how to get started once you've got it installed, all that kind of stuff. So if some people like using GUI, some don't. Just know what's nice here is it's basically combining the pip website. If you go out to PyPy, figure out what a project is, where this shared code is, where to get documentation for it. It's built right into Pycharm, which is extremely handy. Documentation is built into Pycharm. You don't have to go search the internet. It's built right into the UI. All right. Other packages, Python console. This is just going to launch an actual Python interpreter. So if I just allow my access to do its thing here. There we go. You'll notice that we have a Python console. This is just like when we're using idle and we get the actual interpreter. You can start coding directly here in Python with an interchange. So if I say something like name equals Jason, right? And then I say print name, it will go ahead and print the name. What's nice about doing it in this fashion, if you notice over here on the right-hand side, I can see all my variables and all of what their definitions are. So for example, I have name and then Jason over here, I can see what that is. So if I'm trying to get some basic API code up and running, I can set some different variables, but I can see the outputs over here. If I get a bunch of output from something and I assign that a variable name, I can then see that over here and I can digress through it. This is super helpful if you're pulling, say, JSON data back from an API. You can then explore what you're all getting back from the API here without having to run a bunch of prints inside of your project itself. So if you set up this interactive environment, do an API call, returns a bunch of data, you can see if it's returning it right. If everything goes the way you expected, now you can write that into your code and move. There's some other special variables. These are going to be ones that are built into Python itself. So for example, this file name, the package that we're running, that kind of stuff. Again, these are all tools that are going to help you as you start dealing with bigger and bigger packages. Under services, there's nothing here right now. This is basically for you to add a bunch of advanced features into Pycharm. All right. If we go up here to file and we work with our settings. All right. There's a lot of themes here. You guys talked about themes and different ones. So there's Darkula. There's a bunch of other ones in here. You can go out and get more themes. So find something that looks good for you that you really like. I encourage you to do that. We did a little bit of this. Notice that everything is color coded and highlighted. That's going to be important as it's much better than the idle where you guys have no color coding, right? So you don't know. You have some, but not a whole lot inside of there. So feel free to set your themes the way you want over the next couple days here. This is going to be settings for your entire project. So this is where we can set up our Git repository. There's some other ones out there. I mentioned Subversion. There's Mercurial, which is still fairly popular. And there's a bunch of other stuff that you can get set up out here. Specific to this project, if we click on Project Get Started, we can work with the interpreter. We can also come in here and add our Python packages. So say I wanted to add something else in here, I can go ahead and add, and I can do that. It's another way I can update packages. So notice by default, pip and those are not installed to the latest version. It's going to let you know that every time. If I click on this arrow here and tell it I want pip and I want the latest version, I can hit install. We can see it out here at the lower right, going out and installing the latest version of pip. Grab the latest versions, give us a green that everything's installed. Of course, my battery's running dead, and we can go through there. All right, you hit OK. Now, if I come back out here to terminal, I do a pip version. Sorry, pip-v. Scroll back up. Should have gave me that where they want a dash dash. Shouldn't be. Oh, capital B. There you go. We can see that we're now at 22.2.1. All right. Some other items that you're going to see up here at the top. Again, once we get GitHub in here, you can share your project out. So if you start writing your code, you hit share to GitHub. It's going to go ahead and create a repository for you on your account and submit that out. If we don't end up using GitHub Classroom, then this is the way we'll do it. This is the way I'd like to do it anyway, but if the GitHub Classroom stuff works out, we'll do it that way. Other ones that are nice out here, you can come out and use run. You can use it with a debug, so it's going ahead and do those breakpoints. You can set up your own breakpoints along the way. Refactor, this is going to allow you to change things. So a lot of times, like say you want to rename a file over here. I want to rename this. I have to go to Refactor, rename, and then I change this to main, or it was already main. Let's do test and Refactor. That's going to go through your project and make sure that there's no references to that file and that you would break certain things if you change the name of that file. So again, in idle, you just changed it and waited for it to break and then try to troubleshoot why it broke. When you get into intelligent IDEs like this and Visual Studio Code, you don't have to do that anymore. They help make sure you don't mess up everything. If you had a second file over here, so say I come out here to new file, try to do this as quick as I can before my battery dies. Python file over here, we call this test2. It's going to bring it up in a tabbed interface up here at the top. You can bounce between those. What's also nice is you can right click on this tab and say split right, and it's going to go ahead and allow you to have two of these side by side. Very beneficial if you're trying to compare two pieces of code. You can also tell it to go in and do a comparison between those two codes and figure out if you've got any errors inside of there. All right. We're going to go through a whole lot more of this as we start coding. Those are just some of the basics to let you know what's in there. A couple other things. If you go to new project, you'll notice if you have the professional version that we downloaded, the first one is pure Python. You will have options to do Django and Flask, which we'll talk about in this class. You could do a scientific one. All these are doing is installing those packages for you, where you don't have to do them from scratch. So we're going to do them from scratch, but know that you can set that up. What's also nice is you can come down here to like an HTML5 boilerplate. You can also install Bootstrap and start different HTML projects right off the bat. Again, it's going to just automatically install that stuff for you. If you're one of those that likes to code and type the install and all that kind of stuff, just do a pure Python project, go out to the terminal and start installing. All right, that should get you through today. If anybody has any questions, let us know next week, before Thursday. Try to get this student developer pack installed so we can start playing with GitHub on Thursday. All right. Anybody online have any questions? Thanks, Crush. Sam, you got any questions? All right, no problem. we will see you on Thursday.